What sets the Purina goat mineral and the Purina wind and rain sheep mineral apart from other minerals that are on the market is because they are designed by folks that are in the business. We work very hard at the Purina Animal Nutrition Center in Gray Summit, Missouri to maximize efficiency, to increase the number of lambs that we have on the ground, and I know the goat herds that we work with are on the same role as us. The best way for producers to ensure that they don't have a mineral deficiency is to supply a quality mineral. That's where we have worked so diligently on the Purina goat mineral and also the wind and rain sheep mineral to provide myself and other producers an opportunity to decrease problems. From the reproductive standpoint, vitamins and minerals play a huge role in sheep and goat. That's where we have found the biggest contribution to our operation in terms of AI and embryo and then conception on first-time service. So there's a distinct role that the minerals play in repro for us. That's what makes us unique and different, is because we're creating products that work for us.
Contact John Starnes, your Pride Ag Resources LPS and Purina Animal Nutrition Specialist at cell phone 620-518-2370 or at jstarnes@landolakes.com. You can also contact Shelly Hamilton, who's a feed sales specialist with Pride Ag Resources, at our cell 620-393-5872, and that's at shamilton@prideag.com. Contact them for your goat and sheep feed needs.
Stay Tough Superior Fencing Products presents its fence test video. During this video, you'll witness the strength and resilience of a Stay Tough fixed knot fence compared to a standard hinge joint fence, as both are hit by a full-size truck. Stay Tough fence is made of high tensile wire that's 3 times stronger than low tensile wire and will stretch less than 1%. Low tensile wire will stretch more than 10%. Both fences were installed under identical circumstances and using the same tooling and fence design. Let's see the results. Stay Tough Fence comes with a 10-year written limited warranty. Contact us at 1-888-223-8322 or visit our website to find a dealer near you. Stay Tough Superior Fencing Products. Stay strong, stay tight, stay tough.
Getting up on a morning like this and seeing the sun come up is just beautiful. I was herding sheep when I was 12 years old. I had a pack horse and a teepee tent and a stove, and I followed the sheep, and I loved it. In fact, if I had my druthers, I would be out here herding the sheep every day. I don't think there's any better life. We want to be in business for the next generation. We're feeding the world, we're clothing the world, and to us, that's a pretty noble profession.
200.
Makes me feel good that our kids want to raise their kids like they were raised. Makes me and my wife feel like that we must have done something right. My name is Stephen Osgathorpe, and I'm just an old sheep herder.
Making Kansas a better place to live and work has been our goal for over 100 years. It's a responsibility we don't take lightly.
It's all with your sediment.
365 meters.
365 meters.
K-State Research and Extension serves our rural and urban neighbors by helping you adapt to new technologies, protect our environment, improve nutrition and food safety, and grow the next generation of leaders.
And my world. And my world.
We help farmers and ranchers adopt new tools that improve profitability in a rapidly changing marketplace.
That went into it, going to help some people.
We prepare and inspire leaders to take on challenges with confidence, be responsible, and give back.
Thank you very much. It will be a great help.
I think K-State Extension is a marvelous partner.
We bring people together to complement each other's unique strengths and make communities more vibrant and successful. We are Kansas State University, in every county, working shoulder to shoulder with organizations, local leaders, and you to help our state grow and thrive. We are K-State Research and Extension.
Too bad. Okay, comparative forages samples. This is some stuff from Servatech that this just compares alfalfa, and all those are different forms of alfalfa. It doesn't say the stage. Whenever they bring it in, they just say it's alfalfa long stem. There might be 10 different ones. You can see the differences in the ranges from 17.8 to 22.3. And this one, was pretty close. Maybe wasn't probably a whole lot of samples. So you just go on down the line. And so I picked out the highest one and what was turned into them and labeled as alfalfa was 22.3, and the lowest was 17. Well, if you look at book value and you average it, they have it specifically to very mature, full bloom, and semi-mature, and they have about 5 different levels. And they range from 13 to 19% is basically the book value. So if you bring in some that's 22%, you could be overfeeding protein, which isn't bad, it's just expensive. Protein will turn into energy, but it's an expensive way to use to provide energy. Grain's a whole lot cheaper than using protein to provide energy. So I'm a big believer in getting your feed tested. You look here at ADF, you can see the highest one there, and the highest NDF is over here. So it doesn't correlate. Just because you're high in NDF may not be the highest ADF. So you need to get your samples tested. And again, here you look at TDN. One sample was 71.3 and another one 50.9. And so it makes a lot of difference when you're calculating rations. And the book values down here, just kind of average book values. I averaged them and you can see what they are. And if you're 71 and TDN's at 55, a lot of difference in those averages. And this is, when I put it in a ration, you can kind of see over here the numbers that I came up with. Put 4 pounds of alfalfa in, you can see that. And this is this 140 pound ewe in early lactation is what we used. And these would be hair sheep. I put it in as hair sheep. You can see the numbers that just about consumption wise, hair sheep it's hard to get them to eat 100% when you're figuring that. I mean, Ron and I went around and around about that, and it's just, we can't force them hardly to eat what they say, what the program recommends. So we come close and we're trying to do this. So if we're within 98, 99%, we feel pretty good. And if they're not, you still got to watch your animals and make sure that they're eating what they figure. Okay, and you can look here, we're still above net energy, just right at protein. And this is for ewe lambs having their first lamb, second lamb, because they still have a higher maintenance for growth, even on the second ewe lamb. And when you get to the third, that's your mature year ewe. And you can see right in here that you're overfeeding the mature ewes and you're underfeeding, you're just feeding right the yearling ewes. So if you got enough sheep to break them up and feed them separately, that's best. Most of us can't do that. So that's why I tried to figure it for the lower end and know I'm going to be overfeeding the others. Okay, go on to the next slide. Now this is the book average. If you look at the book average, and it's changed from 2.2, it really changes a lot of stuff. We was using CRP in that last one at 2.2 pounds. Well, in this, it's down to 125. So if you use an average alfalfa, it changes there. You see one of the things, the calcium phosphorus ratio, they like it 2 to 1 is usually the preference. We're not quite there, but it's close enough. 1 to 1 is kind of a minimum, what I prefer, and I know Doc prefers. We talked about that earlier. Okay, now here's the high value alfalfa. See what it's dropped it down to? We were on the low, we were using 2.2 and 2.2. And we dropped that way down as far as using, and that's just a change in quality of alfalfa. You can reduce your feed and some of the other stuff. And there's kind of comparative value. You can see how much it costs you today if you use the low alfalfa. Now I just kept the same price. And if you don't know what you got, you're going to figure it the same. You can see it's costing you almost, what, $24 more a day on 100 head of ewes to feed if you're overfeeding protein. Well, in my books, that's quite a few dollars for 60 days. But okay, and then went down and what I did here was I just this is the average value, and say I've used, we figured that this was the lowest what did I do there? Okay, it's okay, this should have been average. You can see what the boundary condition score is down here on average. And if we go to a low quality and we're using that average ration, or we think it's an average ration and we actually have low quality, you can see down here the weight gain, you're losing weight down here, you're losing body condition score, and you can see up here the numbers, you're only getting 80% of consumption, and you're not meeting your, as far as the 2 younger one groups, you're not meeting protein requirements. And if you look here, the calcium is getting up there. It's closer to that 2 to 1, a little over 2 to 1. So that's a little better than 1 to 1. And if you have high quality alfalfa and you actually think you have high and you're feeding low, you can see how much change loss you get there, where you're up to losing 1/3 of a pound a day from your ewe lamb. So that's quite a bit, and you need to know what you got. Again, look up there, you're not eating near as much as the low quality if you figure it right. So that's where
it pays to go ahead and get tested. I'm a firm believer in it, if you can tell. Now, just compared some Sudan grass stuff that they came in, the different names that they came under. You can see what was reported was 6.3 to 11.2 as far as protein. Forage sorghum, ADF 34 to 48, NDF 69, 55, and 64 and 51.6 as far as the TDN. So it makes a huge difference if you're hitting the lows or highs and you think you're using average. See book average down here. So we go through and we did that. I did those. In essence of time, I'm going to push forward a little faster. Okay, one of the things that you can use is hay inventory calculator. And it's available on Ag Manager at K-State. If you know what you have, okay, I just put in some numbers here. We can change them. You can see what happens. If you have 100 head, that tells you how much tons of hay they're going to need. And you go down a little bit further. Say you've got a field of 40 acres and the average is going to be 1.5. Now this is generic. It's not taking in protein, but it's just total amount of feed. You can see it estimates storage loss 15%. That's kind of what was on the books, and 5% feeding loss. So it shows that you're going to be needing 72 bales or 72 ton. I should say bales there. But basically you're going to have 25, you're going to be short 25 ton or 41 bales of feed. So, you know, if you want to kind of use that, it helps if you got 2 or 3 fields and you kind of figure out how much you've got coming in. It's just a way to look at it and verify from your perspective your total inventory. And you can estimate ahead of time. Last year, our estimates would have been falling way short. I'm a firm believer in having at least 50%, if you can, of feed or forage available for the next year, just because of years like this last one, and everyone's scrambling right now. There's a lot of people selling cows. I don't know if people are selling sheep ewes or not. I haven't heard many yet, but goats. But the cows, a lot of them went to market. So, and it's just a matter of pre-planning some of it. Then the other thing, which is on the next slide, and I'll just go to it. This is out of Nebraska, and it's managing risk on the ranch, and it's a guide to help manage, plan ahead for a drought, and in that way you have a deal. They have a booklet that you can download. I've downloaded. I got 3 copies up here. Somebody wants one, you can take it with you. But there's a whole list of things they go through, what to do and what you need to look at. You get on this website. It's like I said, do drought mitigation and University of Nebraska. And so they come up with a lot of different things here, why plan for drought, etc. So that's another resource for us. And with that, I'll get off of that one. Go back to my other. Okay, so we've talked about the hay inventory, the drought management planning. Now, one of the last things Ron asked me to talk about, and we had a little bit of discussion earlier, was the value of protein. not all protein is created equal as far as the price. And so if you look up here, Impact is a liquid protein that several of you use on feeder lambs. It is, that's the cost, the protein you can see there, cost is $600. Is it one of the more expensive proteins? Well, right now, maybe not. You can go down through Cubes 20O, which that's mainly for cattle, but I used what we had local. So most of these prices are from our local feed mill here. And when you look at Corn Chop and Milo Chop, sheep can process whole grains, so you don't necessarily need to roll it. But if you do, that's figured in this price. And this is figuring the cost of protein. Some of the proteins now in Milo and corn are running 10 to 11. I'm conservative. I like to use the 9 just because that's the way it was several years ago when I went through, and I'd rather be conservative, error, and caution a little bit. Okay, so when you go through and estimate in dry matter, how much dry matter each one, you got to take that into consideration, like the protein tubs. And then there's the amount of protein for the amount of unit that you're processing. Like the protein tub is 125 pounds and dry matter is about 113. So you're getting 27 pounds in that of protein. This one happened to be at 24%. So when we go to the next slide, it tells us what the protein cost is per feed. When you look there, Impact is about $1.25 for the protein, but it works well mixed in. You don't have to feed it every day. It's there. And there's a lot of advantages. You have to weigh those advantages, costs, and see what it's worth it, whether it's time and labor. For example, you get down here, there's dried distillers. It's a little more expensive than wet. Soybean meal, surprisingly right now, is fairly cheap in comparison. Protein tubs, $5.81. If you're out on pasture and you got a long ways to go, maybe it's worth it. This was cattle and it wasn't sheep tubs. But you got to remember when you do the sheep that you do not want the extra copper in it. You make sure they don't have the copper in it. So that's the alfalfa pellets is about $1.43 a pound of protein. So, and even like Milo Chop and Corn Chops, $1.91 and $1.76. So you're better off feeding what you want, what's the best for you to go into the ration. Okay, and Impact, one of the things that actually reduced the price down to $1.25 is that 30% of that 35% is urea, which is it's urea, and it's not from natural means. It's ammonia basically that added. So that adds the protein. And if you sack it and take it home in sacks, that it's basically $1.90 a sack. So that's pretty expensive to do. And locally delivery, it's $6.25 a mile, whether you got 1 ton, half ton, with a minimum of $90. So basically it takes 14.4 miles to meet the minimum. And down here at the feed mill here in Jetmore, they can haul, well, whatever, up to 24 ton. They got 3 different trucks. One hauls 8, one hauls, I think, 12, and one hauls 24. So depending on what it is, it's still going to cost you $90 to have some delivered. Is it worth it? It definitely isn't sometimes, but I'd get as much as you could. And a lot of them have compartments. You can split it into 2 or 3 feeds. Like you get corn, you get protein, and you can put it. They can put it in different compartments. And the last thing is rolling Milo or corn is about 45 cents a 100, or about $9 a ton. So if you use whole grains, you save that rolling charge. So that's a possible savings too. And I guess that's all I have. If anybody's got any questions. I know I went through that pretty fast, but I want to try and keep it simple.
Waiting on that I don't know how quick you could bring that slide back up that it showed that one better sample of alfalfa being almost 77% EDN. What do you think, what can you, how can you get there? What's bringing that TDN number into that alfalfa that high where the low is in on 50%?
Well, on that, I'm not sure if they got a mix and it was where they grabbed, because if you look, usually the less mature roughage is higher in TDN.
So it's coming from the leaves, then you think?
Yes, yeah, it'll come mainly from leaves. If you got a really leafy, you're gonna have higher protein. That protein, you know, it wasn't the highest, but it also, you know, it's pretty high in NDF, so.
The RFB number was 184 on there. Is that right? I can't see that.
Yeah.
RFB on those others is
173 is 164, 139, and 166. Probably if you had an RFQ, that number would be even higher.
okay. I'm still pretty old school, but the TDN number, the RFB would be a pretty good measure. I mean, you still want to get it tested, but it would really, I mean, to get protein and TDN in one package, that's worth a little bit more money. Buy the better alfalfa.
And we don't know which sample, the 71 may have went with one of the other. No, that's just the top end range and low end range. And Servitech provides this, so if you want that leak, I can get it to you. But it's really nice. They have grains, hays, silages. So there's a lot more, they have a lot more categories that you can choose from. I just picked and chose and posted in here. Actually, it's on 2 different pages, so I had to take 1 page picture and post it and do that on the second page and line them up. So, but that's it's pretty interesting to see the ranges, and if you use averages, it's not necessarily, you could be really behind using averages. That's why I prefer to have your own samples.
Where do the nutritional needs really spike in these animals, like a month before breeding, a month before laying or feeding? Where did we start? I mean, where do the needs go up?
Okay, your nutrition, you can use dry or, you know, use a maintenance ration up until the 3rd trimester. Then you need to up it a little bit. But when early lactation is your highest amount of nutrition necessary. That's one reason I chose this, because it's going to make the most difference here. You know, when I did the comparative analysis deal, that's where you're going to lose, make the most difference. And you're losing 1/3 of a pound a day. That's a bunch on sheep. So, and you're talking your ewe lambs, they're fairly small anyway. So you may or may not get them rebred. I mean, that's the other issue. If you underfeed during lactation, rebreeding you may or may not get it done, because you may not get them in good enough shape to get back. And I'm talking sheep, those with goats, it's very similar too. It's just that I have the goat formulas and all, or the sheep formulas, and so that's why I use those, and I'm much more familiar with them.
I had trouble on my little farm with, I feed cane feed in the dry lock this summer. And even with little to no grain, used with no baby on to get fat. Yeah, it's hard to know how to manage that, because free choice in there, just gonna.
Right. If you don't grind and know what you're doing and you do free choice, it's tough to even tell the loss sometimes, how much you're losing and how much they're actually getting. But in sorghum sudan grass, it's the thicker the stalk, the lower the digestibility and the lower the consumption. And that's why we use sweet sorghum. Well, that gets a pretty thick stalk, but we planted it dry land at a higher rate. And it's normally what they recommend, 1 pound or 2 per acre. Well, we were planting it at 15 pounds, and that reduces your stalk size a bunch. And it gets you a lot. It's a sweeter taste for the sheep, and so that was one of the ways we got around that thicker cell wall was to do that. And so, I mean, it worked. We had pretty good luck with it, but
And I think there's, you know, not all sedans are created equal, you know, BMR sedans are more digestible. Stage cutting is, you know, that's why the testing is so important, to really see what you have, and then if you have means to, grind it or mix it in a wagon, or even if you don't, you offer the poor quality feed, you know, free choice of ground bale, and then you hand feed the premium, which is maybe BMR or alfalfa. You try to meet that need that way, and the body condition is so important on all this stuff to keep, don't get used too fat too quick, because I've had way more trouble lambing use that were too fat than too thin. And you can't put on much condition score after lambing, but you can hold your own, and your lambing season will go so much nicer if they're not overfed. And that's a whole nother school, but just learning how to condition score those sheep, to know where they're at. There's nothing better than having the sheep in the right shape at the right time, for lambing, and this goes so much nicer than to get too fast or too thin before or after. And then if you want the lambs to grow really fast, then just pour the groceries to them. That's why we hadn't talked a lot about distillers grain, but that's why I like distillers so much in lactate rations, is because it's so safe. You know, it doesn't have a lot of starch. So you can feed a lot of distillers that give lots of protein and fat and be pretty safe, not have, you know, acidosis or and cut quite a bit of your corn cost. This corn is ridiculously high right now. The distillers is still pretty high. Of course, alfalfa, a little bit on that alfalfa is the nutritionists, and there might be some listening, I don't know, but they say I can balance a sheep ration without alfalfa, but they haven't lambed very many sheep, because you've got to have a little, there's something different about the calcium level in alfalfa versus rock mineral, that even a half a pound will keep you out of having pregnancy toxins and milk fevers, you going down. There's just something different about the way they absorb the calcium out of the alfalfa versus how they absorb it out of the rock. And I don't know if anybody really understands that. I'd like to talk to them if they do, because every time we try to pull alfalfa out of the back, it will cause me a problem.
That made a curious question for you in the past, versus rice oil as a selective replacement for alfalfa feed, but what I wanted to ask is if the infrared testing on sampling would pick up on some of the cyanides that stay inside that plant. Once it's got. That's one thing I was curious about. Do you know if the infrared testing would pick up on that?
yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't think unless you're tested for it, you're not gonna find that way.
Right. One of the things that was prevalent this year, we have some haze that's got high prussic acid, and it's not supposed to. Once it's supposed to disappear, but sometimes it doesn't. We've had high prussic acid in former years in corn stalks. That's not supposed to have any in it. It's a pretty cheap test to test for that in nitrates, and it can make a world of difference. I don't think Becky wants to go out on any of those calls with the nitrates or the prussic acids.
No.
The-
Generally, by the time they're not a good outcome.
And I wonder if that calcium quality, back to talking about the burst rot, I'm assuming since it's still a lagoon, that quality calcium is carrying through those clovers and, you know, I don't have access to much of that kind of feed, but I assume that that's still a good high quality calcium.
Things like alfalfa pellets, there's alfalfa,
But just a crop, just a burst of
I know that the calcium that you fed for is the same.
well, it's always just a process. But there's just something about the way that they absorb it that makes a difference on how well. And we found that just as little as a half a pound per day in late gestation or even late gestation, when you have most trouble with your milk fevers and that, but even a half a pound and getting your calcium, this is enough. I mean, you wouldn't think that would be enough, but it fixes all the problems with that late gestation. And then, and you still need to keep enough bulk in that diet to keep that room with scratch and function, so they're not picking on each other. Craving that. That's another thing though, about that, Jefferson, about getting too fat on those, that stand. A guy, and I don't really know where that limit is, you can feed it 100% of intake and 50% of intake, and it almost seems like 75% intake is where they're still pretty comfortable. But that's the lower intake of that high quality feed, but there's a point when you still have to, you gotta get enough scratch in there or you're gonna, it's not gonna be happy. And they've got to be chewing on, everybody start chewing on the ground, and chewing on the fences or posts. But most of the time you keep that chewing on the.
Yeah, Jason was showing me, my neighbor there was showing me video of that, it's cheap. Just hauling over.
Yeah, and they are not getting, they're not happy inside. Another thing I've seen sheep chew on each other is lice. That'll all that. They'll just go up there uncomfortable, they'll just go take the trunk out. But most of the time it's the roughage part of it, they're not happy, they're on skin. But the condition score and the stage, those especially type of boost use, I've run use for 44 years, and that late gestation, every year I still get it on like that. Because that's when you up your big stretch. Just, you're on pivot needles till the babies start coming and it's okay, we made it.
I think that's the only time in my life I've actually
We're gonna go ahead and let Dr. Becky talk, and if she's coming up, I might have her comment. If you look here at this, as if you were feeding this lower Sudan, quality Sudan grass, and you thinking it was the high, you can see what that does to the calcium phosphorus ratio. You want to come on up? You want to make some comments and then I'll switch off here.
So Dwayne is commenting here on the calcium phosphorus ratio, and I don't know how much you guys know, but ideally we want like a 2-to-1 calcium phosphorus ratio, not to get that too inverted. 1-to-1, you can kind of get away with it, but I've seen kind of a lot of wrecks when we get that inverted and a lot of issues, especially in that late gestation, early lactation. So as much as we all talk about protein and energy and everything, those minerals do play a pretty big role in nutrition as well, health management and everything else. So definitely just another factor to kind of pay attention to is your minerals.
Okay, you ready to? Okay. I'm going to get her